Just get you to, I'll ask everyone to just stay muted, but feel free to unmute and jump in if you've got any questions or chuck them in the chat. That's just general housekeeping, like anytime, yeah. And even the people in the room, I might get you to unmute if you're asking a question, just so that everyone online can hear what it is and my response as well. Louise, yeah? Yeah, still here. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the place where we are gathered in this room today, which is the Turrbal and Yagara people, and extend my respects to any First Nations people participating today, listening to the recording. Thanks for coming in. We've got quite a lot of content that I want to share with you today. So we did do a couple of weeks ago, it was like an Arts Marketing 101, and this is kind of like the next step up, and it'll predominantly focus on social media being the major marketing tool that we all use in this day and age for marketing our shows. It will be a little bit broader than that, but that's really what we're looking at today. And yeah, some of the concepts I talk about today might have been in that other one. We'll touch on them really briefly, but you might want to go back and have a refresher of that if anything doesn't make sense. I'm going to share my screen. So ideally, if you can have Facebook business set up in advance. There's just a few tools that we use in that. So even though today I'm going to talk through like different social media things, I use Facebook as the primary tool to market and sell my shows and have done for a number of years. This may change in the future, but at the moment, that's kind of where we're at. So that's going to be my major focus. Here we go. So who am I? If you haven't met me before, I am a creative producer and performer, and I've worked in and around the arts for quite some time. I run a website called Nothing Ever Happens in Brisbane, which is an alternative arts and culture website. I am a circus performer and producer. I've done a number of shows in Anywhere over the years. Yeah, this is probably my favourite Brisbane festival for the wide variety of shows, the wide level of people being creative, and just for the sheer creativity that comes out with such a broad amount of people participating. Now, how do we want to do this? Are you going to let people in, or yeah, manage that? I'm just going to set up my screen so that I can see, if I can see. I want to be able to see chat while we are talking. Hi, Priscilla, welcome. Set up. So I can't, Paul, do you know how I can get this so I can screen share and see chat at the same time? But I can't see the chat at the same time unless is it possible to? Otherwise, can you keep an eye on the chat and just sing out if anyone makes any comments?
Yes,
but yeah. I'll just ask if you're out in and about to just put your laptops on mute, but unmute whenever you've got a question and just jump in throughout. All right, so let's kick in. This is what I want to cover today. So some real basics on social media. I want to look at a little basic toolkit of like what I use for creating content, scheduling, finding audiences, and some of the apps I use. I'm going to talk about a perfect 6-week campaign because that's approximately what we're working with here and why I like the 6-week campaign. So, and I'm going to very specifically go, here is an outline of an example of a campaign that you can have a go at with this particular one, and then can modulate in future depending on what kind of shows and stuff you've got. And then I'm going to have a quick run through advertising and Facebook business. And that might be pretty quick and follow along on your computer, but again, it'll be recorded so that you can come back and have another look. So let's go. So the basics with arts marketing, it is about connecting the people who are interested in the show with the people making the show. Hello, welcome. Just going to mute you up, Jeff. There we go. We're in. Yeah, so, all right. So yeah, arts marketing is about connecting people who are interested in the show with the people making the show. We've got about 4 million people in Brisbane, I think, at last count. There's a lot of people out there who are into the kind of art that we're making. So it's really about just finding a way to make sure that what we're making is meeting the people who are interested in it. I highly doubt that anyone's making a show that doesn't have an audience. And I guess it's just about making sure that we use the resources at our disposal to try and connect to those people who are interested in the thing that we have. We use different tactics to reach the audience. We use storytelling across those tactics to make that connection. Like I said, today we're going to work on social media. So if your audience, and these days most audiences are on social media in some capacity, all ages, all demographics, all interests are spending time on social media. If for some reason you do have a specific audience that isn't on social media, say that they are off-grid, anti-electricity, I don't know, I'm just imagining a specific type of people here, then you would need to lean on a more traditional media campaign, maybe getting into local newspapers, or maybe you'd do a mail out. But for general purposes, we can work on social media and kind of assume that some of our people are going to be sitting somewhere in that huge big pool of socials. This is a slide from my last workshop, and it's just going to be a little recap on what the audience journey actually looks like. So out here in the world, let me put my little pointer on. There's a pointer. So down here, we've got, this is everybody in the world, and we don't actually want to reach everyone in the world. We want to reach within that crowd and find the superheroes who are our specific people. They are the people that are actually interested in what we're making. They just don't know about us yet, but they're the right shaped person for what we're creating. When we find them, we introduce ourselves to them, and that might be through advertising or a Facebook ad, or meeting someone, or doing a promo spot at a festival. And that will move somebody from somebody who doesn't know you into what I call a cool audience. That is somebody who has met you, they kind of know a little bit about you, and they're interested in learning more. As we move up and our relationship progresses between audience and artist, we might introduce ourselves a bit further by posting lots of cool photos about ourselves, or they might come to another show where we do a promo spot, or different types of tactics. That relationship develops, and that relationship becomes more warm until eventually that audience, a potential audience person, and that relationship is hot, and they are ready basically to do the thing that you want them to do, which may be buy a ticket and come to the show, buy some merch, or whatever it is. So I always like to just think about this process when I'm thinking about how I'm communicating to an audience, and I go, does this person know who I am? Do they already have a relationship with me? Am I introducing myself, or am I just layering onto the depth of our relationship and moving them up to that buy a ticket? So if somebody's already come to a show and they already like what they do, they may just cycle back around and sit straight back into a warm or a hot place. So that is, they already know you, they're familiar with you, they just need another little push to push them over the edge and remind them to come back and see a show. And I suspect that all of us have people who already sit into the warm and hot audiences, even if that is, you know, our friends and our mums and so forth. Like, yeah. So as I move through, I'll probably refer to cool, warm and hot audiences, and that's what I'm talking about, where they are in the relationship between us and them. This is another slide just from the arts marketing workshop from a couple of weeks ago. And this is just this really basic way of thinking about how much do I need to push a campaign? How big does it actually need to be? And I usually make a campaign using this thing here, which is the 1% guideline. I need to reach 100 people for every ticket sold. So if I'm doing, and I've got a little example over here, if I've got 5 shows and they've got 50 seats each, I've got a total of 250 tickets to sell. And so I'm going to be trying to reach 25,000 people. And if I can, in my campaign, reach 25,000 people and just one person in every 100 buys a ticket, then I've got my season sold. So this is kind of just a little mathematical formula that I use to figure out how big my campaign actually needs to be. This scales up and down. So if you've got 3 shows of 30, you only need to reach, you know, like you can see how the maths works. If you're doing an Edinburgh Fringe season and you've got 400 seats and you're doing 35 shows, then you've got 4,000 tickets to sell. It's again, it scales up and down. The next questions just kind of go, okay, how long have I got to sell it? And then it's what capacity do I have? So the trade-off in all tactics, whether it's social media or traditional media or in live things, is that either costs you money or time. And depending on what you are like as a creative, you might have more money, or you might have less money, or you might be so consumed in your creative process that you don't have time, especially in the last 2 weeks. So it's kind of a bit of understanding what your capacity is actually going to be and going, well, actually, I can't do any advertising the last 2 weeks run up to my show because I'm so consumed with my creative process that that's going to be a bit much for me. And I think that's always important to consider. If it's your first show, you might not know what it's going to be like, but if you've made a show before, you might have an understanding of how much capacity you actually have. The other one that I always consider too is, what resources do I have? What can I already bounce off? So do I have friends in the industry? Is this my second season in this location? Do people already know me? Do I have local knowledge that nobody else has? Have I got heaps of friends? So these are the kind of things that you can incorporate when you're planning an advertising campaign. You can actually go, well, these are resources that can give me a head start or give my campaign just a little extra boost at the start. And finally, I like to think about, where is my high quality audience? So this 1% only works if, to go back again, we're looking for the superheroes in the 1,000 people. So if I just throw my flyers at any 1,000 people, I'm not going to get 1 in 100 buying a ticket, because my shows are a particular type of show. They're designed for a person who either likes circus or who likes, you know, the particular thing that I'm making. So you're looking for a high quality audience, and that's the right shape of people to throw your materials at. And if you can find that audience and put your beautifully made materials in front of them, they will see that connection and be like, yes, that's the thing I'm into. I want to see it. As I said earlier, there are people out there and they want to see the stuff that we're making, and it's just a matter of making that connection so that they have that opportunity. Good marketing campaigns are on the right platform, are consistent, planned, and strategic. And did I write some notes about this? No, I didn't put them underneath. I guess, so this is, again, finding the right platform is about figuring out where that high quality audience is. Being consistent is about I guess it's about planning ahead. I mean, the planning there as well is planning ahead, figuring out how big my campaign's going to be, and then I'm steady. My audience gets to know that I exist. I don't suddenly have a dead Facebook, I mean, we're all guilty of this, but a dead Facebook page for 11 months and then 3 months of just yelling at people to buy tickets is not an effective strategic use of my energy or an audience development. Yeah, been there. Social media. So the first one there, finding the right platform. Choosing your channel, where are your audience and what are they doing there? So I've written a few suggestions there, and there's probably people out there who work on further platforms than this, but these are the big ones, and I put them in this order on purpose. So Facebook is like, I think some 6 billion people out of that, or I don't know, there's some ridiculous quantity of people in the world are on Facebook. As we said before, everybody's there. Instagram can be a useful marketing tactic, but it's less of the events pages that Facebook uses is how a lot of people plan their social lives now. And the reminders that it fits in is almost like having a calendar. So it's actually a system that many, many people are using to plan what they're doing over the next month or two. Instagram can be a useful marketing tactic if you have it's more of a full-time tactic than a last minute. So if you've got an Instagram following and you feed into it and people follow you, then it becomes a useful marketing tactic because people are watching that and then they're like, oh, here's my chance to see Betty Grumble when she comes to town because I'm already in a relationship with that artist and I'm looking for her to do for my opportunity to have another engagement. It's less of a useful tactic for somebody who is just making a 6-week campaign because you don't have that following there and it requires such a huge amount of money and effort to bring an Instagram profile up to that level from ground zero. Twitter can be interesting because if you're into Twitter and that's your jam, you can basically ride on trends and I think they call them tidal waves, and you can hashtag jump trends and get in front of people. You can also directly interact with journalists. It's not for everyone though, but it may be for some shows depending on your content. If you've got content in your show which is particularly newsworthy and that, you know, or particularly pertinent to a social issue, it might be interesting. I've tucked TikTok in there because it's growing like crazy, but I don't know how effective, like it's clearly a massive, massive platform and lots of people are really into it. But I don't know how effective it would be for marketing this festival in this city because even though there's so many people around the world, there's actually, I think, only about a couple of 100,000 active users in Brisbane. And I'm not sure if they're using it in a way that they actually buy tickets. It's content consumption, yeah, and it is, no, you're right, jump in, chuck your thing on. And yeah, I think unless you've grown a huge following and people want to see your specific face, so I think maybe if you're a comedian or if you're doing personality-driven shows, it might be a useful thing to consider. But also, as long as you're also looking for an audience demographic of probably 25 and under. So there's probably a few things in there that if your audience is on TikTok, you probably know. Same with YouTube and Twitch. If you are using those platforms and you already have a big, strong community existing on them, then that's probably going to be a useful tactic. For the general marketer, probably not. Same as like podcasts, and you know, I could keep writing different social medias for quite some time. My next little comment there is about, so Facebook feed for pages is pretty much dead. And I say this because pages, so that's just when you just follow, you know, a social enterprise or a business or whatever. There's content that's being posted on them. About 1 to 3% of people who follow them get to see anything. So Facebook pages, although they kind of are required to be maintained, they're not useful as a marketing tactic. Facebook feed for individuals is very much alive. So your personal profile has much greater reach and will be seen by your friends and your family. Facebook events, however, is extremely useful. And Facebook events and groups on pages are useful because if somebody hits like on your event or is interested on your event, then they will receive every post that you make into that event. And this is useful because that means that, so somebody who hits like on your event is interested, they've already moved into definitely at least a warm audience from a cool audience, and then you can keep feeding them content until they move, and you know, introducing yourself until they move into a hot more audience profile, and then they actually buy a ticket. So I primarily market my events using Facebook events. Hi guys, come on in. We'll have to sneak you in somewhere. I do it the other way around, and we'll come back to this in more detail in a little bit, but I actually post it to my Facebook event first, and then onto my page and onto my personal, because that creates a link back. So when it's on my personal page, you actually have that link back to the event.
So you don't create the event in your business page?
I create the event on my business page, and then I put my content into that event, and then I share it from there onto my pages and pages. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I create a funnel that moves out from the event.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And I'll come back to that one in there as well. Looks like I skipped a few there. So the way, and this little bit at the bottom here, social media tactics, this is just a little summary of how we use social media to sell events. And this is, so there's a few different ones there, and we kind of touched on it with those different platforms. You might grow a big community, and that might be, you know, a permanent long-term thing. And this is maybe more for people who have a venue or a, you know, maybe who they do a festival like it. So having a big community there all the time means that they can always feed things to people. Having a great page or profile, that's a way, you know, that's an Instagram tactic. Making an event, that's my favorite. Advertising is also really useful, and leaning on our personal social media networks is one of the primary tactics that we can all use, especially for anyone in the Anywhere community who is in the newbie to emerging area. Yeah. How are you guys going? You guys you're able to get into the Zoom? We're just looking on Zoom because our projections weren't working today. I'll get, yeah, sharing screen with the slides on it. So yeah, so storytelling is what we do when we're marketing, and this is what we all do no matter what our show is. And here are some of the core elements of what good storytelling is composed of. So the first one is to be clear about who you're talking to, who actually is my audience. And we're going to explore a little tactic on Facebook Business for figuring out who our audience is. You might actually already know, if you're making a specific type of show for a specific type of person, you might already have a clear picture in your head. And if you don't have a clear picture in your head of who that person is, there's a few ways that we can find out. Storytelling from the perspective of marketing is always going to rephrase in terms of what's in it for me from the perspective of the audience person. So this is, rather than me telling somebody why they should see the show, this is me phrasing it in a way why they want to see the show. And it's a little bit of a head trip that you do when you're writing. And I guess it is, so it's like the value proposition is why someone should see the show. So it might be that you'll learn about the lives of refugees in Australia. Now this is, so if I'm going to just flip that into a what's in it for me perspective, I move it from you should learn about the lives of refugees in Australia because this is a really important issue, to I care about us treating refugees well in this country. And so you want your content to actually reflect that personal perspective rather than the didactic telling perspective. Does that make sense? So you're always trying to rephrase it in terms of that person. Yeah, I won't be in it, I don't think. Somebody, hang on. Oh, you're able to help these guys find the Zoom link for the, yeah, thank you. So storytelling, okay, so then the next section in storytelling is emotional connection, and this is us artists and making connections with people when telling any stories is always about passion, and we are always more attracted to somebody who has a story that they want to tell, whether that story is, you know, attached to something like the lives of refugees in Australia, which is, you know, your emotional story, or if it's just, I've made a really sexy show and you're going to forget about yourself for an hour and it's going to be awesome. Or like, so passion can be, you know, it's not just attached to strong horses. It's like, it's passion for whatever the thing is. I'm going to make a beautiful, calm meditation and we will all be zen by the sea for an hour. Won't that be delicious? Whatever that passion is, there will, be a way of describing that. The voice is being clear about who you are and what you're saying, and that's authenticity, which I've spoken about in the last marketing one. And it's really just being clear about who you are and why you're making this show and why it's important to you, and speaking from that voice through your marketing copy. Okay, let's start getting down to into the nuts and bolts of it. So people are often going, how much content do I need to make? Is there an endless amount of content? No, there's not. And I don't recommend making endless amounts of content either. And so this is just a rough guide of what I would recommend that's bounced off some of the research that I've done. Facebook posts, you probably want 2 to 3 a week, and then you might escalate that during the week of the show with extra social proof posts and opening night tonight, photos after the show, etc. Instagram would be the same, and I'd probably escalate that last week and add stories the week of and during. Twitter, don't know how many people out there are planning on using Twitter in their campaigns. But if you do, there's some options there with wave riding and hashtag jumping. I've known some campaigns where 6 people have got together on a particular high profile event and hashtag jumped a major event to throw thousands and thousands of hits towards their page. It's a thing you could do. Requires a little bit of commitment from your team. TikTok, I'm not a huge TikTok user, will confess, but the way that I understand that I've seen the people that I know getting good success on it is about having consistent, regular content that's meeting the trends that are blooming on any particular week. So it's following along and going, who's going off, and then creating your little matching videos that respond to the big trends. Types of content. So I talk about this because there's also people go, okay, so I've got to do, 2-3 posts a week. And the thing we don't want to do is just yell at our community to buy tickets, because nobody likes to be sold to. Everyone likes to participate in these events, but there's a difference between going, here's this really sexy thing you want, and going, buy the ticket, it's still on sale, have you bought a ticket yet? So when I'm making a content calendar, I try to do no more than 20%, so 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of my posts will be direct ask to buy tickets. Everything else I post is everything else. So I've got, and it kind of will roughly follow these kind of categories. So visions and values. Where are we going? What does that matter? Who are we and what do we stand for? And this kind of is like, you could post, in the next one we'll go to that. So education is, what do I know? What can I teach? And conversation starters are the questions, the provocations, the interesting things that are happening to do with your sector of the world that week. So it's quite easy to create a lot of content quite easily, like that shouldn't be too stressful an experience for you if you kind of lean on going, okay, these are the kind of broader things that I can chat about with my community when I'm planning a campaign. And I think I have, so this is how I create it as well. So we've got share, borrow, attribute, photos and videos from your photo shoots, vision boards, rehearsals. So the cool pics with quotes, and that's a very common thing in Facebook groups these days, where you might find an artist that you like and put up their picture along with a quote that you like and attribute both correctly. But that picture and that quote reflect what the meaning of your show is or what the gist of your show is. And this is a really useful thing to do if you don't have much content and you're still making up your show as you go along. You don't actually have to, so at the start of your creative period, you might not have many pictures. You might not even know what the show is going to be other than what you wrote in your Anywhere application. So this is a way of creating content easily that reflects where you're going to end up without you having to do a photo shoot or make a video or, yeah. Same with links to articles that express your values. If your show is about two older people that fall in love, and you might post articles about happy marriages in nursing homes, or other things like that, where it's like, oh, and you are demonstrating your values through that. You're going, this is what we believe in, this is what we're into. So that your audience, as they're sitting there from, moving from cool into warm into hot, are going, yeah, I'm in the right place. I believe in love stories. I think it lasts forever. And that helps them to know that they're in the right place, talking to somebody who understands them, and that they're going to enjoy this show. Does that make sense? Yeah. Got a few other things there. I'll show photos. So you don't have to have photos from this show. You can have backstage photos from your last show. Nobody will know, actually. Profiles of your team, pics of the script, like literally the physical script, imaginary stories the characters tell. If you only have one image, you can actually edit it 16 different times, make it black and white, and then make it fluorescent, and then make it mirror imaged. And so in terms of creating content, don't overthink it. It's easy to make a lot of it. You just want to make sure that it's, where are we? It's got an emotional connection, that it talks to this value proposition, why someone should come see the show, and that it's you speaking. So I find people worry that they won't be able to make enough content, and I just want to assure you that you don't have to overthink it. It doesn't have to be all brand new, original, expensive, edited videos. Really doesn't. I like to make a content calendar. I'm a bit of a geek like that, and what I will do is I will literally get a blank calendar and go week 1 Sunday to Saturday or Monday to Sunday, and have my 6 weeks, and I will go, okay, what are my essential posts that I'm going to put in here? I need to have got the week of the show post, I've got opening night post, I've got festival launch post, and then I will fill it in around that, and I'll go, let me see, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and see if I can open a example that I made. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Here's what I've made previously for work, and I'm just going to pop that back onto sharing the screen. Oh, here it is. So this is an example of what I actually do at work as a social media marketer. So I've got a month here, and it looks a bit more complex than it is. So just go back in time and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm filling them in. Okay, so the first thing I do is I pop in my essentials. So I've got my opening night, my night 2, my closing night, and I've got my campaign launch at the start. And then I go, okay, I've got my 4 different types of Facebook posts: vision, education, conversation, and sell. And I'm going to do a couple sell posts, one right at the start, one halfway through, and one the week of the show. And they're going to be my only actual direct ones that go buy a ticket right now. And an opening night one. And then probably every night. So then we've got, okay, so then I've got some Facebook visions. So I'm going to do 2 to 3 posts each week across the whole campaign. And that's going to be my Facebook, and that's it. So I'm going to do maybe 3 Facebook visions. What have I got? Then I've got some education posts, and you can see I've just kind of filled it in so that I've got 2 or 3 a week. Yeah, and then I've got some conversations. Now I've also got an Instagram account, but I'm not going to try so hard on that one because I don't want to have all those conversations. So I'm just going to do some vision posts, which are going to be hot pictures of our backstage creation stuff and a couple sell posts. So then I've filled them in here, vision. And that's because I know that my audience is just backing up my audience on Instagram, but my actual selling is really going to happen on Facebook. So then I've got some vision posts that I've just jammed them across Instagram. And so now I've made a little summary of how many posts that I actually do. And I've got, okay, I've got on Facebook, I've got 3 selling posts before, 3 vision posts, 3 conversation posts, and what have I got? 1 there. There we go. So I've got a total of 9 Facebook posts and 11 Instagram posts. And so now instead of going, okay, how much content do I need to make? I can actually go specifically, I need 3 sell posts, 3 vision posts, 3 conversation. Like it's broken down from an impossible amount of content into a specific number. And I can actually make all of this in advance on a 2-day little thing where I sit down and schedule it all and then not think about it again while I'm having a creative melted breakdown. And that's, yeah, this is an example of one that I've done at work where I've done the same thing. And my work, we like to do, we like to put world days in. So you can see I've got World Religion Day, Penguin Awareness Day, Chinese New Year Day, and I've plugged them in first. And then I've filled in the gaps around it with those same Facebook and that's what I do each month in order to just make it easy for me and break it down so I'm not overthinking my social media posting. Yeah.
So we're talking about the marketing campaign. Does that mean
looks like that, but there we go. Does that mean that you're talking about posting personally as opposed to your page? Because you're talking about Facebook page is not necessarily having much value for posting. So are we talking about what people are posting personally or sort of leveraging the page?
So I create a sales funnel, and what I usually do is my primary tactic is get you to have to mute again, I think. Wait. So I make a Facebook event is my primary one that I make to start with, and then I feed everything back out from that. So when and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail when I show you my 6-week campaign outline, but basically I'll create a Facebook event, whether that's attached to my personal account or to my business account. So I use it for my arts production company account is who I make my events through. And then I start all my content in there, and then I feed it out to the page and I share it to my personal page. So this allows me to make one piece of content that I chuck into my event, and then I share that onto the business page, and then I share it onto my personal page. Yeah.
Performance.
Do you have more than one? So the question was with one event. Do you mean, do you have multiple notes to show, but it's the same show? One event with multiple dates. And then you just use that one single one, and that's going to sell all 3 of yours or all 7 of your dates. So, yeah. And yeah, so the advantage of using a funnel like that is that so everyone who hits like on that event is going to get everything that I post in their feed. If I just post it on my business page, then maybe 1% of my followers will see it, and it's kind of just shouting into the void. So if I share it from the event onto that page, the same amount of people will see it there, but everyone who's interested in the event will see it and will get to know me better. And so then when I'm using those different types of things about my vision and values, my education, my conversation starters, all those people are kind of confirming as they go along that what they thought they were initially interested in, they're actually really interested in. And I'm just backing them up by going, yeah, we're into this, we like this, look how cool this is hot, you want it. all the way up until it comes to, okay, it's 50% sold. Are you going to buy now or what? And then they're like, oh, I am going to buy now. So you don't want to be hitting them with sells all the way through. You want to be having a relationship, having a conversation. And then when you get to that sell point, they're like, yeah, you're right, I will buy a ticket. Oh, and my friend just got it. Oh, I better hurry. So it's about developing that kind of feeling. And you might, this feeling that you've had yourself when you've been looking at other events possibly on social media and you're like, oh yeah, that looks cool. Oh, and then you saw another picture. Oh, it looks really cool. Oh, actually, I really like, oh, and then now they just announced one of my favorite artists. And then they're like, hey, buy tomorrow and you'll get 2 for 1. And you're like, oh, I can't resist. So it's that they warm you up and then they're like, okay, buy the thing now. And that's why, so yeah, 20% of total posts for selling is enough, because you're actually selling in all of those. And if you're just constantly hitting people with that ask, then they're like, I don't know, nobody wants to be sold to, but everyone wants to make a friend. It's like just chuck it on for a second. Do you want to just pop on your microphone and ask me?
What if they're in multiple?
I would probably, so look, it depends with that one. I would probably be making separate events for them, unless it is the Louise Tour 2021. And then in my Facebook copy, I'd be clear that there's multiple things. The only problem with events is you can only put one ticket link. So for anywhere that might work, because you only need one ticket link to your ticket link page. But if you were having multiple different ticket links for each venue, because you're at the Triffid one night and then you're at Rick's the next night, you'd probably need separate events. But you can also, so yeah, if you're selling the tour, then I'd keep it all together. If you're selling separate events and there's slightly different audiences or they're completely different towns, but you can actually reuse that content in both of those events, because the people who are in Ipswich are probably not going to come to your Noosa show because they're too far apart. So if you've made one piece of content, you can reuse that in each of your events. And sometimes I reuse pieces of content across campaigns. So I'll use it in March and then I'll use it again in September, and then I'll put a filter on it and use it next year again in March. Yeah, less focus on being worried about making original content, I think. So I think a lot of people get caught up in going, what do I need to make? How do I make enough stuff? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so just going back to that one there, and I'm just going to pop that up into the big ones again. So literally make a calendar for your 6 weeks, fill in your content, figure out how many pieces of each you actually need, and you can create them in advance when you have downtime before you're in those last throes of dealing with the production and the tour and the bits and pieces. And if it's live content, so if you're planning on creating content, say every day during your show, then schedule time in your calendar for it so that you're not going, oh, I'll just do that in 10 minutes. Give yourself plenty of time. If you're going to be making stories every morning for your season, make sure that you've actually just give yourself a heads up on that one. So it's a content calendar. Can be really basic. Just get any calendar off the internet and just fill it in. Yeah. Excuse me. So these are the basic tools that I use. I do all my scheduling in advance in Facebook Creator, which is another one of the Facebook apps. Yes, there's about 700. And I also use Facebook Business for making all my advertising campaigns. But Facebook Creator I use to schedule all my Facebook and my Instagram posts these days. Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Can you now schedule to Instagram ahead of time? Because that was always, for the longest time, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, you sure can.
But through Facebook only?
Hang on, just pop that up again.
So,
It's quite annoying. That allows our other people to hear. Yeah, so you can schedule Facebook, you can schedule Instagram through Facebook Creator now because they are both owned by the same conglomerate. Yeah. If you're only using Instagram, I really like the Later app. But these days I actually just do all my scheduling in Facebook Creator because it's easy. It's slightly annoying because, you know, it doesn't have a spell checker in it. So I make my content in advance and then I just go into my scheduling app and just upload it rather than creating it in the scheduling tool. I make a Word doc and go, this is what I'm going to say. And I've got my calendar and I know when I want it to go. So I've actually pre-made my stuff and then I just jump in and then I'm just adding it in and putting it on the days that I want it. No, Facebook Creator, the question was does it cost? No, Facebook Creator is free. Yeah, the free, slightly glitchy, free tool from Facebook. And yeah, so for editing, I personally use Adobe, but you don't have to. Canva's there. There's a million apps on your phone. Here's the 4 that I use the most often. Excuse me, but you probably have apps that you were already using and are already familiar with. And if not, jump onto, you can use just the general picture editor on your computer. Like it's not, yeah. The only reason that you need really high quality editing is if you're going to make a gigantic poster or a billboard or something like that. But for most social media, it's going to be seen on a screen this big and the picture's going to be this big. So even if it's really poor quality, nobody's actually going to know for the most part. You're not doing web design, it doesn't matter. Yeah. For tracking, I use the insights inside of Facebook and Instagram, and I make a spreadsheet. You probably don't need to track too much if you don't want to, but if you are serious about being a self-made producer, I recommend tracking your social media, going how fast is it going, how much did a campaign give me a boost. This is kind of, yeah, again, this is not for everybody, but if you're a bit of an arts marketing nerd such as me, then you might make a spreadsheet and keep an eye on that. And I also like to track my ticket sales. I've done this for a number of years where I just make a little spreadsheet and I go how many are selling each week, and alongside I'll also do that. So I'll go for the geeks among us, but it allows you to, if you're going to be doing this for years and you're doing campaign after campaign every year, you can kind of look back on that and start to learn from your experiences so that you can really build your ability to know what works for you and your audience. But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to buy the really expensive subscriptions. You can just use the native insights, make a spreadsheet and track your reach and your basics. I just use Excel, and like I don't use any formulas really or anything. Like can I go out of here and find a social media? So this is an example of one that I currently have for work, and it literally, I've got the date, and I do it on the 11th of each month, and then I write down how many followers I've got, how many likes I've got, how many page views, what's my post reach and my post engagement. And it's just a little things that I can go, in the year and a half or 2 years I've been doing this, I went from 2,900 followers to 3,700, and yeah, real basic. Yeah, Excel is the most common one, or you can use Drive, which has got very similar words. I think Microsoft has got a fee. I think Drive's free. Am I right? Yeah, yeah. That one was if you've got a Gmail account, then you can use G Suite and have Google Sheets for free. Find your audience. Right, so really 3 steps here, and we're going to jump into Facebook Business in a second, so everyone who's got it set up can try and follow along. And yeah, so these are the 3 kind of basics that I do. So I sit down with my through my team and I go brainstorm and go, who do we think this show is for? Because often we are making work either for ourselves or for a specific audience. So you often already have a pretty good idea of who you think is going to enjoy the show. The second one is I ask a person who knows a bit about me and my work, but is one step removed, who they think the audience is. And this can be useful because sometimes you can be too close to your work and somebody else just outside of it might be like, you said it's school teachers, but actually I think this is for school students. And you'd be like, you know what, I think you're right. So it's always good to have somebody who one step out. The other tool that I use is audiences on Facebook Business. And let's see if we can pull this up. So if everyone wants to jump in and go to Facebook Business Home, and if you haven't got it, then just follow along. And when you've got it set up in the future, you can come back to this video and just follow it through. So in order to get to this, yeah, you'll have to stop screen sharing so that you can jump in and open a, oh, do I have to? So that everyone else can get out. I think if you hit escape, it'll make it smaller. That's what we're after? Yeah. So this tool only works when you have an active ad account attached to it. We don't need to spend any money, but they just need to have a debit or a credit card attached to it to access it. And what we're going to do now is so Facebook has got some 120 points of data on every one of the people that are on it, including ourselves. And it gathers them in this very cool and kind of creepy tool, audiences. So on the left-hand side, we've got audiences there. And if we want to have a click on it,
Business manager.
now, let me just, so yeah, we want to be in Business Manager. And we want to click on these, on the little 9 dots that's up in the top. Okay, so can everyone see what I'm doing? And so if we click on the 9 dots, we get a little pop-up menu.
Sorry, Nadia, we can see your PowerPoint slides.
Okay, let me change it to it. This one, right, how's that?
That's better, thank you.
Cool. So up the top here in the left, we've got just the Facebook name and the 9 boxes. And if you can't see that, just click on the logo and that should bring you back to this default page. And so in this little 9 dots up here, if we click on that and open that up, we'll get a little drop down menu. We want to scroll all the way down until we find Audience Insights. Not insights, but I think we'll just go over 2 seconds ago. I want to change to give feedback and switch to Business Manager. Right. So when you come into Audience Insights, how'd you go? Did you find it? Yes. So there's choices here. Everyone on Facebook or people connected to your page. People connected to your page will only work if you have more than 1,000 people approximately who follow or like your page. So if you have got a page that's got a lot of people that follow it, then you can go in and have a look at the attributes of the specific people that follow your page. So I'm going to do that straight off with one of the pages that I work with, and I might go with Wow Australia, which is the women's festival that I work with. The other thing that you want to do is you just want to make sure that there's no location, because I'm not going to be able to see it because I'm looking at the wrong ad account. Okay, so you just want to make sure, I won't be able to show you from my specific page because I'm in the wrong account, and I'm just going to keep rolling. So if you've got a page that's got more than 1,000 followers, you can drop it in here and you'll be able to actually go and see it for yourself, what your followers are like. If you don't, then we are going to do a little bit of exploring and try and figure out who our audience is just by looking at other people who might be similar. So to start with, we're going to go and pop in at least Queensland and maybe Brisbane if we can. So you've got it's already given me a few different places, but Queensland, the state, and I want to look at people who are interested in, what are we going to show on here? Let's go with my example that I was talking about before and go, is there refugees? Okay, so let's have a look. People who are interested in the Refugee Council who live in Queensland, and then it's going to give us a little drop down of percentages here. And it goes, you know, it leans towards women, less men like this page and these interests. And page likes is actually the little stalker feature that we want to use that's over here. So if you click over here to page likes, yep. On the 9 boxes, scroll all the way down to audience insights. Keep going, nearly there. Yes, yep. Now, what this feature is that I find really interesting about it, for example, is that it gives you a whole pile of things that people who have this interested or are also interested in. So we've got some libraries, we've got some museums, we've got a whole pile of stuff. So I'm going to get rid of refugee and let's go with, so just here you've got interest. So the interest one on the side. So I'm going to put in harmonica just for something, because I'm going to do a harmonica gig. Highly unlikely, but anyway, let's give it a go. And I still want to make sure that I am in, let's go Brisbane, because I want to see what Brisbane audiences. Yeah, so I want to see what Brisbane audiences think about harmonicas. And okay, I can see now I've got a pretty even split of genders. And let's go have a look at their page likes. And what this is going to give for me, so all right, I can see straight up we've got some musical instrument stores. I've got some community organisations. Oh, I've got Can You Keep a Secret? All right, so maybe if I'm planning a show, that might be a good venue because people who are into harmonica music also like this venue. And this venue, the Jazz Club. So this is a way, you know, I go, all right, so they like Triple Z and they like Jonathan Shree. Maybe they lean to the left. Avid reader, that's probably a good place for a poster. And I use this tool to have a good little like dig around and start having a look at people's interests and start narrowing in on what my people are like. So as well as harmonica, I'm also going to look up folk music and see whether that changes it. And I'm going to go, so my demographic, oh, slightly more towards women this time. Interesting. And this is useful because when you're setting up advertising, you can target specifically women or specifically men if you want. And if you have an audience which is 80% men, then you might want to only spend your money advertising at them. You might not want to bother splitting it. I definitely know I work for a women's festival, and so I don't put any money advertising it to men. Although we do want men to participate and come, it's not a good use of my advertising dollar. Yeah. So then we've got, right, so folk music, page likes, let's have another look at this. And I go, okay, oh, the Tivoli, they go to Woodford Folk Festival, that makes sense. What else have we got? Okay, so here's some Moreton Bay, so that's, you know, maybe tells me a bit more about where I could advertise. Does that make sense as a way of using this as a little digging around tool to explore who your audience is and what they're interested in? Whenever I'm starting a campaign and I'm getting to know an audience, I'll spend some time in here. I'll plug in companies I like the sound of. I'll plug in interests that I think are my audience. And I'll go and I'll just have a good dig around and see if I can get to know them through the algorithm. You know, go, okay, there's lots of things that you can pull from here. So urban list, I go, all right, so maybe that is a good place to try and get an interview or an article or some advertising. Brisbane Times is also there. Eat Street North Shore, that might be a good place for me to go and do a pop-up performance or hand out flyers. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can use this audience tool to help develop your idea of who your audience is and how to reach them. Right, I'm going to stop sharing that one and keep moving. It's just gone 10:30. Let's just take 5 minutes to have a look at that, grab a glass of water, do what you need to do. We'll just go, yeah, just a couple minutes to digest everything that's come in just then.
With all of these sort of things.
Okay, so they're quite broad, maybe. Okay. And have you got, just scroll up and tell me, have we put in a location?
That's what I did.
Showing it. So it's just saying Australia at the moment there. So
Okay.
until it gives you a drop down. Yeah,
Change it to that.
yeah. Queensland should be fine, but just zoom out or maybe just hit refresh and see what comes up.
Excuse me, Nadia. Can I ask a question when you're ready?
Yeah, sure, Belinda.
I missed the all-important bit you showed me, where you showed us go to ad accounts and then where did we find the insights?
Where do we find audience insights? So,
Yeah.
so I'll just share the screen again.
Yes, please, thank you.
So if you're in Facebook Business,
Yeah.
the grey one, and just if you click in the little logo up in the top left, which is the Facebook one, to bring you back to home.
Mm-hmm.
So you click in there and you should have these little 9 dots here, yeah?
Yeah.
So open that drop down
Yeah.
and you want to scroll down past audiences all the way down until you find audience insights.
Past audiences. I see advertise, I see analyze, audience, I gotcha. Right.
Audience insights, that's the one. That's your little Facebook stalking tool.
Thank you.
All right, and then when we come back, we're going to go into a perfect 6-week campaign.
Mm. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Yep, all right. Found the search. Cool. Yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd for these kind of things, but I always like to go in and, like, if I'm setting up a campaign for, say, a new show that I'm taking to Edinburgh Fringe, then I'll go and do that and I'll explore that audience in Edinburgh. It's a really useful tool for going, especially if you're a touring artist, for going and exploring what's the difference between where you are now and where you're going to. And you know, go, what's the difference between, you know, where are the venues where folk music people in North London hang out? Like, this is a way that you can help access that if we ever get to travel around the world ever again.
Nadia, I typed in performance art for interest and no demographics came up.
It might be another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
What I did.
I think that
Yeah. It might just be too broad. So sometimes it doesn't pick up specific things that we want. So sometimes you might just need to muck around and see what comes down in the drop down until you can find something. Sometimes very big companies exist. So like you might be able to find Cirque du Soleil, but you might not be able to find another equivalent big, you know, like, so it's just really, I guess, having a muck around and chucking in different things. Sometimes the terms are Americanized. So yeah, it can, so yeah. There can be a bit of mucking around and digging in at different angles. I've had trouble with circus terms before just because circus isn't necessarily the way that people like circus on Facebook is maybe not the way that the contemporary circus shows that I make actually what they actually are. So maybe contemporary dance works better for what I'm actually looking for in the audiences. So it's, you know, using a bit of creative vision to dig in and have a look at people's likes and interests and venues and magazines, all sorts. So let's go again. So yeah, we've got using audiences on Facebook business. And then I like to test my audiences if I can, particularly because I run stuff over several years or I work with companies in the longer term. So I do different things from running test campaigns to doing post-show surveys to asking people directly, do you like this picture? Would you go to this show? Yeah. So next up, a perfect 6-week campaign. I like a 6-week campaign for anything, especially like, so I really like a 6-week campaign for multiple reasons. Aside from anything else, it's a nice period of time. It's not so long that I'm going to get overwhelmed with a huge amount of content. For the majority of my stuff that I do in Brisbane, it's not a huge price point. So the only reason why I would like a longer campaign is if I am doing a big international tour, for example, I like to get started earlier, or if I've got a really high price point show, you know, $100 plus or more, because people don't make big purchases that often, and sometimes I need a bit more of a run up. But for a show that's anywhere between 15 and 40 bucks, most people aren't planning that more than 6 weeks out. So, and in fact, most people make their final decisions about that a couple of weeks in advance max, and often during the week. That's definitely been my experience. So when I'm making my campaign, I've got 2 audience streams. I've got my cold audience, so that's people who haven't met me before but would like to, and I've got people who have met me before and are already warm or hot. So they're my previous audience and my wider community that already exists. Yeah. So I've literally written here a example of the kind of tactics that I would use over 6 weeks. And you are welcome to take this exact campaign and give it a go and see how it works for you this year, and then adapt for yourself from here. It's not a exclusive kind of, yeah. So, and I'm just going to run through it really quickly and just tell you the different things of how I run across those weeks. So one of the big tactics that I use is what I call a group bump. And that is where I get everyone in my group to all at once on the same day, post about the show, share the show, do everything. And that one might be just everyone who's in my cast, or it might be all my friends and family, or it might be my circus community. So I literally lean on my personal relationships and my cast and crew and the venues, etc. So everyone who can count in that kind of inner circle of the show. And on one day, we all post, share, make a personal post. And the effect of this is that basically, like, especially with some of my cabarets, which might have 10 performers, it makes it look for a day that Facebook's flooded with this show. And everyone's like, suddenly they're like, I've never even heard of Nipple Hell. And then suddenly everyone's heard of it. So it creates I guess a nice, no, it's not even illusion. It creates this sense of, oh, what's this thing? It's got hype about it. And if you're a producer and you're managing artists, you might need to send multiple emails and really push your artists to make sure they do it. But this is a super useful tactic for just really getting the ball rolling on starting a campaign. I send everyone to my Facebook. As I said before, my primary place is my event, and that's where I share the event, and I get everyone to share the event and try and get as many clicks on that interested button as possible. And that's really what I'm trying to do at any point in time, is to get people interested and liking the event, because once they like that event, I can keep talking to them and I can convince them in 6 weeks that it's worth coming. I do get my cast and crew to invite people to the event, but you don't want to spam on that because Facebook actually penalizes that. So you don't want to do, like, if you invite 400 people, they might cut you off and lower it. So you just want to do a steady thing of every day or two, inviting 10 or 20 people each and just building that invite up if you want to use your personal networks, that is, to grow an event. Yeah. I'll launch some advertising in the first week to get clicks on that event again. And so that's going to be a advertising campaign, probably going out to a mixture of a warm and a cool audience. So reminding people who already like me that we've got a new show, letting them know, and also trying to reach new audiences. If I'm doing any traditional media tactics, I set them up in that first week. If there's any event listings online that you want to add to reviewer invites. I'll chuck my posters up in the venue. Week 2, it's just kind of like, yeah, just steady as she goes, chuck up a couple extra posts. I've probably already pre-scheduled them. And I'm just starting to like hand out my flyers to my friends and make sure that my posters are up in my favorite circus venues and that kind of stuff. Excuse me. Mid-campaign, so week 3, I do another group bump. So we've had a couple of weeks, another couple of weeks later, we do it again and we just go big push. Hey, everyone, we're doing this thing. I keep feeding my nice content into that funnel, like I said, into the event, onto my main page and onto my personal pages. Week 3 is a good time for any guerrilla tactics that, like if you're going to do any flyering, if you've got any promo spots that you've managed to hook up to promote it, if you're planning on doing a flash mob, please, giant puppets, anything like that, that's a good time, because 3 weeks out from your show is enough time for people to see a thing, go, oh, that looks cool, a week to think about it, and then they see it pop up on Facebook again and they're like, oh yeah. So it's a nice period of time for people to become aware about you and start looking for you and then sign up for it. It's also a good time you can't always plan your media calls, if you get a radio interview or that kind of stuff. Week 3, week 4 is a good time for that, because again, it's close enough that it's nearly there, but it gives people enough time to find out more and buy a ticket. Week 4 and week 5 is just steady as she goes again. I just keep my content dropping into that event. So if I've got 50 or 100 or 300 people who've liked that event, I just keep feeding them information. Just here's some behind the scenes. Here's my favorite artist. Here's just a nice picture with a quote that makes you happy when you see it. And just keep that feeding along so that you're just maintaining a connection. At the start of week 6, I do my final big group bump. So that's just one going, this is it. Now we're here, we've arrived. I think it's really important, and a lot of people, and I've done this myself, that we get worried in that last push that people aren't buying tickets, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't buy them all the way up to it. And sometimes we have very small audiences. It's important not to lose faith in that last bit and go, nobody's bought a ticket and it's 2 days beforehand, and to just keep pushing, because there's often a lot of people who are like, oh, that's right, I really wanted to go. So it's often also really nice to pre-schedule your final show pushes so that you're not trying to write happy things when you're freaking out and you had a tech that ran till midnight and everything else was going on in that week, which is a super hectic week. So it's often nice to have already gone and pre-scheduled your morning things, going, tonight's the night, so excited, can't wait to see you there. Because those last few day pushes can actually really turn a lot of people around. I've definitely bought tickets off of that. Going, oh, that's right. Oh, it's Friday. Oh, let's go see a show. Oh, that's right. So it's not a time to slacken off. It's a time to escalate. But yeah, knowing your own capacity, give yourself space. I've got a maybe in there too of an email to the audience. And this is sometimes we have to email our audiences anyway if we're doing shows that are in weird locations and we need to give them directions, or if there's an expectation of how they behave at a show, you know, like you're not going to take any photos, or I don't know, there's a lot of different things you might suggest to an audience, and that might be a chance to value add to the relationship. So this is for people who've already bought a ticket, so they've already committed to coming to your show, but you might be able to just further develop that relationship so they're really excited about it and they already start sharing in advance. So they start doing your marketing for you by going, I'm going to this tomorrow, anyone want to come? All of that kind of stuff. During the show, we want social proof posts. So social proof is when somebody who's not you tells them that it's a good idea to come to the show. And that is when somebody checks in at your show, when they take a photo with a performer afterwards. I always encourage every show to go out and take photos with your audience afterwards, because people, usually they've had a really nice time. They love seeing whatever it is that you've made. If they get a photo with you, they'll nearly definitely post on their social media and go, hey, this is Nat, and I just, oh, what a great show. And so that is a piece of free advertising that goes out to their 700 friends. So that's a really cool, easy bit. If you've got to pack down straight away, just nominate one person in your crew to go be the photo person. Figure it out if you can. Yeah, at fringes, that's like primary. Box pops, which is like when you get a little video of people after the show going, what did you think? And then you take a video of that and you pop that up in your social media in the morning. If you've got any reviews and you want to pull a quote out and put that on a picture, that's another one, because that's somebody who isn't you talking about how good your show is. And if your review was average or lackluster, you can still pull an interesting quote out of it and put it on a tile. You don't have to share the whole review if you're not overwhelmed with it. And I just say this as like, it's, you know, it's cheating, but that's between us as arts marketers. Yeah, never let the truth spoil a good story. And the next person in might, you know, that'll turn, yeah. So I can ask people to consider reserving up to 2 hours a day during the show for this social media posting, which sounds like a lot, but it actually takes longer than you think to find your review, pick your pull quote, add it to a picture, put it on a post, think about what you want to say with it, share it out to three things. So if you've actually scheduled that time and you know that you need from 9 till 11 a.m. undisturbed to do that, you'll have space and you won't be rushing, and it won't like, yeah, it's just it's a good thing to preempt how much time it's going to take.
But Nadia, I'm a solo performer producer with a one night only performance. How am I going to fit in 2 hours in my one and only day where I've got a 1 hour setup, a 1 hour pack up, I might need to rehearse and rest?
To start with, you're only doing one show, so you don't need to. This kind of like social proof post is for people who have a longer season, who might have to sell tickets across 3 nights or 5 nights or 11 nights. So that kind of ongoing social proof post, because you've only got one show, you can actually pre-plan and schedule your entire thing a month in advance if you like, using pictures and quotes and anything else that you like, because nobody's going to know that you didn't post it that morning. So if you want to sit down right now and write the post that you are going to post the morning of your show, when you're like, I'm so excited, this has been such a creative journey, blah, blah, and you scheduled that right now for the morning of your show, then that will just roll out and you don't need to think about it. Yeah, that kind of posting during the season. And if you don't have that amount of time, then you can also do pre-scheduled stuff, or you can also lean on your team and go, hey guys, there's 4 of us if you've got a team, or rope in a friend who loves using Instagram, or like, I guess I'm putting it in there to highlight the capacity that you might need to have, so that if you know that that's going to be a problem, you work full time and you're doing the show after hours, how can you get in there ahead of it? Yeah, how can you get in ahead of it and be ready for it so that you're not getting squashed with the pressure of it, with everything else? It's challenging to be a producer and an artist. Yeah. Are there any questions about that kind of stuff?
Are there times of the day that you suggest for scheduling posts? I tend to schedule mine for mornings, but is there any evidence or?
You can use insights to look at when your audience is online. So, and I think it depends. Okay, so there's a question there of who is your audience. So with the women's festival that I work for, a lot of our audience are ladies that get up first thing in the morning and check their feed, and it's useful for me to post at 5 a.m. because they have a look with their coffee before they get on with their days. On the other hand, there's going to be other audiences that I know that their primary time for looking at social media is when they get on the bus at 5:30 after work. So you probably want to post, you know, a couple hours beforehand. But I also wouldn't overthink it, because Facebook's algorithm is such a mess just now that people look at it and they get their notifications and they look at it whenever. So if you're posting into an event and someone likes it, they're going to get a notification for it no matter when they look at it, whether they look at it in 6 hours or whether they look at it the next day. If you're posting just onto your page, who knows when they're going to serve that to you. It's a bit of chaos at the moment. Yeah, that's why again I try to get them into that event, because I know then that if I make a post, it's going to get to them.
So should you put a post saying like this?
I don't even bother with like this page. If they're in the event, they're going to get notifications. Yeah. Yeah, Facebook page is a bit dead at the moment, and we just had, I'm not even going to talk about it now because it's not relevant, but that whole thing that just happened 2 weeks ago, it's possible that when we do this session next week, next year, we'll be having a completely different conversation. So this is relevant for now, yeah, and we'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, events are good, pages are dead. Yep.
I've been trying to. Oh, I thought I did, sorry.
That's right, you might have. Go.
I've been trying to post videos like natively through Facebook, because I personally have found that YouTube videos, if you just post it directly to YouTube, it sort of pushes it down. Is that something you've noticed, or is it okay to post YouTube links, or, you know, what have you sort of found because of the rivalry between Facebook and
Yeah,
Google?
look, native video I definitely like. However, it depends. So if you're posting it into an event, again, they're going to get it whether or not it's native or not. If you're posting it on your page and you're getting good interaction with the native stuff, I think that they like every platform tries to, I don't know, they do like native content and all of their.
I've just found that video content, but then I think that goes back to your point about page feed in general. Like, I've been creating video content and it's just not been getting engagement or anything, and then you keep getting messages from Facebook going, make sure your videos are 3 minutes long, and it's like, well, often you don't have that much. You're just putting up a short, quick, fun, maybe 30 second.
I would be concentrating on making sure that content is going to
events rather than okay.
And then this is the thing. They've wrecked their algorithm in order to boost paid advertising, and how are we doing?
Oh, actually, I have to.
Right. I'm going to fly through this. I don't think I'll have time to demonstrate setting up an ad, but maybe I'll make a video afterwards and pop it into the event. The basic thing is I set up my audiences in advance and I make my content in advance. And when I'm making my content for an ad, I generally think about, so if I've got a cold audience, I'm introducing myself to them. And I just try to think about it in terms of, if this is the first time somebody's ever seen me, what information do they need to know to go, am I interested in this? So, no. I think I'm good. Yeah, you're right. It's a brave new world we're living in. So you've got 2 seconds to grab someone's eye. So, and that's whether it's a video or a post. So that first couple of words that you write is just absolutely primary. And that just means like, you just try and jam your essential piece of information into that. this is a hot show featuring 11 burlesque queens. Whatever it is the thing that is the primary bit of information that you need for your show, just right at the top. So they straight away, they're going, oh yeah, hang on, I do like burlesque. Yeah, everything you see is part of the ad. And by that, I mean the image, the text on the image, the name of your company, the text you see, the headline, the interested button, the likes that are underneath it, and everything. And I think I've gotten some examples of, yeah, all right. So I've put some examples of some ads up just to have a quick chat about them, and then we'll try and wrap it up quickly. And so you can see here, and these aren't necessarily good or bad examples, but I kind of like, so the middle one here, we've got Adelaide Festival. You can see, oh, I've got Mayu, Daniel and Alethea like Adelaide Festival. They're all artists that I really like. So that already is a little bit of information and social proof. So once people start liking your page and liking your ad, that adds social proof to people in their networks. We've got 1,000 questions about race. You're only required to answer one. A powerful message to take home. Okay, so this kind of copy from this Adelaide Festival one kind of does speak to me as a person. It's not going, you need to learn about race, lady. But it's going, hey, and you know, like if these are issues that I'm interested in, that kind of copy is going to go, I am interested in this. And then they've also got that free in capital letters, and that's a nice little bit of marketing there too that just sneaks in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's another little key part. We've got one roof. Here's something no one tells you when you start a business. Every struggle you're experiencing, someone else has been through that before. It's okay, a little bit wordy, but the picture is really good. I know that I'm going to get this group of ladies are going to be talking to me. It's a International Women's Day panel. So it's actually quite, that image is nice and clear and tells me what I'm going to get. Whereas the text is a little bit, oh, okay, I'm not 100% sure what I'm seeing there. Regurgitator ad is an example of something where they've just gone and they've jammed every single piece of information in there that you can imagine. I don't even know what that text really means. We've got the date, we've got an image here that's got dates, location, tagline, picture, everything. This, however, though, is useful for them because they already have a massive warm and hot audience. So you can see on the others, they've got events where you can click interested, whereas this one's going straight to get tickets. And they can kind of do that because over the last 20 years, they've established their audience so that it's already ready to go. So they're going straight in with the sell, and they're going to put all that information so people can instantly make the decision about when they want to go. So for people like us, I would, you know, for who aren't quite regurgitator levels, this kind of bit where you make an event and click them into interested, and then you've started a relationship where they can get to know you and you can get to know them. I've got some info on reading Facebook ad stats. Can we run over 5 minutes more? Have a quick scoot at that. You run. Okay. I've put an ad up about how to set up a Facebook ad, and I just wanted to have a really quick chat about how to read your stats and tell if your ads are doing well. So I know that a lot of people are capable of setting up an ad and don't necessarily know what to look at when they see it. So I've actually taken a screenshot from some ads that I ran for a company a couple of years ago. Now, when I first set up this ad campaign, I actually did some test audiences, and I created, so with this particular show, what I've got there is meme culture, men and women, and I've written that because when I was exploring who the audience for this show was, I discovered that the kind of people that liked the same kind of things as they were really into memes. They were quite a young alternative audience. So that's just my kind of catchphrase to describe the created audience that I made that I thought reflected those interests. I've also separated my audiences out into men and women in this case when I'm testing them, because I wanted to see if there was a difference between genders for this show in this city. Now, I made 2 audiences at the bottom there, meme culture, men and women, and that's ones that I just created myself. The lookalike audiences were ones where I made a lookalike audience of people who like their Facebook page already. And then I separated that out into genders as well. And so to start my campaign, I ran all these 5 audiences, and then I had a look to see what was working the best. So when you're setting up your stats, you want to be looking at your cost per click and your click-through rate. I'm just going to fly through this because many people are not going to be interested, but so any score above 1% is good. Over 5% is an excellent engagement rate for your campaign. And you want to set it up using the custom columns here so that you can see CTR and CPC. And then you can have a look and you can go, okay, so this bottom one, women meme culture, lowest rate that I had there. These next highest up ones, they're hitting nearly 4 or 5% and they're going well. And you can actually see that I ran, so if you look at how much I've spent, I actually set the ads up on $25 each. And then when I had a winning one, I started pouring more money into those 2 ones to boost it. So I'm happy to explain this in greater detail, especially if anyone wants to jump in a Facebook group later or hang around after this session for this next bit here, and I can kind of talk about that. This is a way that you can set up audiences, test them, find the ones that work, and then pour your money in. And you can see I didn't use huge amounts of money either. Like these are, you know, this was a total campaign for an Edinburgh Fringe season, and that was $215 that we spent. We had a total reach of 44,000, or what we got, 24,000 people were reached, and we had a couple of hundred link clicks that happened, and that's link clicks of people going through to that event, clicking on it, and inquiring about tickets. Real quick run through there with your stats. Yeah, the difference between the click-through rate and the actual reach, and that's just one more one in here, so you can see that got some high click-through rates here, and this one actually had a huge reach, and this one had a lower reach but nearly as good engagement. So it's actually a high quality audience in the women, and we probably had a better rate of sales through that 100 clicks. Yeah, it's a little bit of like having a little bounce off your different stats. If you want to run a test audience campaign, these are the figures that you want. $5 a day per audience that you want to test for 5 days. And that's how long the algorithm takes to really come to grips with an audience. That's it for this session. I hope that wasn't too fast and furious at the end. Paul's going to stay online and answer questions in the Zoom as well and flick them to me, and we're going to chat in the room for the next hour about your campaigns. Any questions that you have, please pop them into the Facebook group and just tag me. That's my Facebook name there and my link for tagging. And check out Nothing Ever Happens in Brisbane, supporting indie arts media. Yeah, that's us. Yeah, I'm going to stop. What are we doing? We're muting this, we're stopping this.
Well, I'll just stop the recording and then we'll talk and I'll get questions from people on here.